thousands of years humans first entered North America is in the most unlikely place.
Archaeologists at the University of Oregon have found one of North America's oldest human-occupied sites in southern Oregon.
What if everything we thought we knew about the first humans in North America was wrong? Imagine a hidden site in Oregon that pushes human presence on this continent back by thousands of years, far earlier than the famed Clovis people once believed to be the pioneers. This discovery didn't just nudge back the timeline, it shattered an entire narrative about migration routes, tools, and survival. Today, we unravel how ancient stone tools, perfectly preserved layers of earth, and the butchered remains of Ice Age giants are rewriting the story of human existence in America. The unseen layers beneath Oregon's desert rim rock. Draw Rock Shelter sits quietly in the high desert of eastern Oregon, an unassuming place that has silently preserved thousands of years of human footprints. What sets this site apart from most archaeological digs is its remarkably intact layers of sediment, layers that have escaped the usual disturbances caused by animals, roots, and shifting soils. Normally, these natural forces muddle the evidence, mixing artifacts from different times and making it difficult to trust exactly when items were left behind. At Rimrock Draw, the story unfolds like a perfectly ordered book. Each time people used the shelter, they left behind traces, fire ash, charcoal, bone fragments, and over centuries, these materials compressed into distinct dark bands in the earth. Between those human occupation layers lie pale, clean sheets of wind-blown dust and sand, indicating long periods when the shelter was abandoned. This alternating pattern repeated itself over thousands of years, creating a record sealed by time itself. This pristine layering is unique. Archaeologists rely on finding such undisturbed sites because the sequence gives a reliable timeline, showing not just that people were there, but exactly when. Working from the top down, the layers serve like pages of history, each dark band a chapter of human activity followed by a quiet, empty interlude. The difference here is that nothing has been jumbled or moved, no mixing of artifacts from different eras. Inside these layers, the team uncovered tools that were deliberately crafted and used. Scrapers meant for stripping animal hides and sharp blades made from flint and obsidian for cutting meat. Each tool sits in its own distinctive layer, telling a story of distinct visits or occupation periods by different groups of people across time.
Patrick O'Grady, along with other archaeologists and students at the University of Oregon, have discovered new evidence.
Rather than one fleeting presence, this was a place repeatedly sought out, generation after generation. What makes such a site even more significant is how it captures a record of human life stretching far deeper into the past than anyone expected. These layered sediments and tools challenge the notion that North America's earliest history is a single brief chapter. Instead, they reveal a landscape of many chapters, written over nearly 20,000 years and counting. Rimrock Draw's undisturbed sediment layers act as a rare time capsule. They let scientists read history with clarity, without having to guess whether an artifact belongs to 1,000 years ago or several millennia past. This clarity lays the groundwork for understanding not just what happened, but how early humans repeatedly returned to a place that other survivors might have long forgotten. The astonishing clarity of this ground record is what set the stage for discoveries that would shake the very foundations of archaeology and of the story we tell ourselves about the first Americans. Tools and bones that defy timelines. Buried in those ancient layers, the research team found far more than just ordinary stone tools and scattered animal bones. The artifacts and remains date back almost 20,000 years. Thousands of years before the arrival of the Clovis people, who were long believed to be the continent's first humans. This alone forces a major revision of the timeline archaeologists once trusted without question. Among the bones were cut marks and scrapings, clear evidence that someone had methodically butchered animals, stripping meat and pulling hides. These marks weren't random or natural. They matched the precise angled strikes made by stone tools. The animal remains themselves included Ice Age giants, like the extinct Camelops hesternus, a camel that stood nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed hundreds of kilograms. Adding to the significance, these camel bones were found in an undisturbed position beneath a solid layer of volcanic ash from a Mount St. Helens eruption dated to more than 15,600 years ago. Because volcanic ash blankets everything instantly and then remains permanently, this layer provides a geological timestamp confirming the bones and the human activity connected to them predate that eruption. Radiocarbon dating on the camel's tooth enamel revealed an age of approximately 18,250 years, pushing back human hunting activity in this region well beyond the accepted arrival of humans at 13,000 years ago. These ancient hunters were not just passing through or scavenging. They were actively hunting and processing large Ice Age prey long before the Clovis model claimed the first Americans arrived. The discovery enables researchers to access both the timeline and all aspects of the historical record, which describes North America's first inhabitants. The research disproves the Clovis first theory, which served as the foundational model for American human history during multiple decades. The research shows evidence of human activity, which existed before the established time frame and developed into a complex society. The stone tools which surround these bones establish a more complex mystery. The artifacts, which were produced from orange agate, demonstrate advanced trading capabilities since the material exists at a distance of hundreds of miles from its point of origin.
It had been carried from a long distance, suggesting that it was an area people passed through.
The people who lived in this area were not unconnected groups who tried to survive at the outer limits of their territory because they tended to develop a wide range of knowledge which they could use to achieve their goals. The active usage patterns which appear on the tools demonstrate that users operated them through multiple times to create technology which met their survival requirements during dangerous circumstances. The tools themselves do not fit the Clovis typology because they validate the existence of a different cultural group which existed before the established earliest known culture. Human footprints here were not the first. They were an earlier, complex story hidden beneath the earth and waiting to be fully revealed. Blood on ancient tools. Beyond the stratigraphy and artifact shapes, one of the most startling revelations came from microscopic traces left behind on the stone tools themselves. Using protein residue analysis, scientists found ancient blood embedded deep inside the tiny fractures along the edges of the cutting implements. This technique can detect animal proteins trapped within stone for thousands of years, provided contamination is meticulously avoided.
We'll compare the chemical composition of our spearhead with a database of over 10,000 samples of ancient the raw materials came from.
The cleaning and preparation of the tools were painstaking, removing any modern materials that could interfere with testing. Once the tools were purified, samples extracted from the microscopic cracks were analyzed for protein signatures, and the results turned everything upside down. The proteins matched bison antiquus, a species of extinct bison that roamed Ice Age North America long ago. This confirmed the tools had been used not just for cutting indiscriminately, but for hunting and processing real animals that no longer roam the continent. The physical evidence of use tied directly to the era of the remains. This biological evidence correlated perfectly with the archaeological context, sediment dating, and bone markings, forming a multi-layered proof that the site was genuinely occupied far earlier than previously accepted. It was no longer possible to dismiss the findings as contamination or misinterpretation. The presence of blood preserved within the tools is extraordinary. Such fragile molecular traces rarely survive so long, and their detection provides a powerful, tangible link between humans and the Ice Age fauna they hunted. It brings an immediacy to a period otherwise faded into prehistory. Importantly, This evidence confirmed that the tools were not simply deposited or lost. They were actively used by early humans engaged in survival activities. This strengthens the case that people inhabited this landscape intentionally, skillfully, and continuously long before mainstream timelines suggested. The protein residue finds were the final nail in the coffin for the Clovis first theory. They transformed Rim Rock Draw from an outlier into a cornerstone site that demands rethinking the entire history of human arrival and adaptation in North America. With this biological connection embedded in stone, the ancient peoples of Rim Rock Draw become more than archaeological abstractions. They emerge as skilled hunters navigating a vast, changing world tens of thousands of years ago, rewriting the story of human existence on this continent. Beneath the relentless desert sun, beneath those layers of soil and ash, history isn't just buried. It's waiting to be uncovered in ways we could never have imagined. A landscape lost and found. The Rim Rock Draw rock shelter was more than just a place to find tools and bones. It was a vital oasis in a harsh Ice Age landscape. During that era, the high desert surrounding the shelter was not the barren place we imagine today, but bordered a rich wetland in the midst of an arid expanse. This wetland was an extraordinary resource, a magnet for both animals and the humans who hunted them. Water in such a dry environment would have been scarce, making this spot a dependable gathering place over millennia. Animals drawn to the wetland included enormous Ice Age creatures, mammoths, giant sloths, and herds of now extinct camels. The steady presence of these species meant predictable hunting opportunities that people repeatedly took advantage of. Returning to the same shelter across generations reveals a deep understanding of the land and these cycling resources. The site preserved this intimate relationship between humans and their environment in layers of sediment and fossils. The shelter offered protection and access to food, a strategic base from which ancient peoples could exploit the surrounding ecosystem. It wasn't a temporary refuge, but a chosen and revisited home in a landscape both beautiful and brutal. The rhythm of their arrivals and departures is recorded in those alternating dark and pale sediment layers, each representing times of occupation and absence. The story is one of survival through deep knowledge of place. What makes the environment around Rim Rock Draw even more striking is that it challenges modern assumptions about Ice Age North America as an unyielding wilderness. Instead, this was a mosaic of habitats, from wetlands to desert, where humans could find stable niches. Their ability to thrive here suggests complex adaptation and an intimate connection to shifting climates and topography. It wasn't just survival. It was skillful living. Over time, those wetlands likely shifted and shrank as the Ice Age ended and deserts expanded. But the tale embedded in the site's layers preserves a window into that ancient world. The fossilized bones and stone tools anchor human stories to a world now vanished, reminding us how intertwined early people were with the ecosystems they inhabited. These ties between humans and nature persisted for thousands of years, shaping their journeys and lifestyles. Remarkably, the organization of the layers shows different groups returning over long periods, hinting at cultural continuity or perhaps communication among regional populations. This repeated occupation extended beyond a single human generation or tribe. It points to a long-term reliance on this special place, turning the shelter into a microcosm of Ice Age life. Each physical layer is a chapter in a much larger story. This landscape context helps us understand why the early human presence at Rim Rock Draw wasn't accidental or transient. It underscores a purposeful relationship between humans and the environment, one that allowed them to navigate the Ice Age world and exploit its resources even in extreme conditions. Rather than isolated wanderers, these were people deeply connected to their land and its rhythms. But while the landscape reveals what supported life, it also raises questions about how people arrived here so early, challenging old migration ideas altogether. Rethinking migration routes. The evidence uncovered at Rimrock Draw doesn't just push back the timeline of human presence. It fundamentally challenges how those first people made their way into the Americas. For decades, the dominant story was that the earliest humans traveled south from Siberia across a land bridge to Alaska, and then moved through an ice-free corridor between glaciers in Canada. This corridor was considered the only feasible route for early migration into the rest of the continent. Yet, the geological record from 18,000 years ago tells a different tale. The massive ice sheets covering northern North America had not yet retreated enough to open that corridor. Enormous glaciers, 2 miles thick, still blocked passage through much of Canada, making the inland route physically impossible at the time Rimrock Draw's earliest inhabitants were living in Oregon's high desert. People were already far south before this path existed. This contradiction demands the acceptance of alternative migration models, most notably the coastal migration theory. This theory proposes that early humans traveled south along the Pacific coastline, hugging the shore in small boats or rafts. They navigated a rugged, storm-battered seaboard full of towering waves, rocky cliffs, and violent weather, relying on extensive maritime knowledge and survival skills. Such a journey was no easy feat. The Ice Age North Pacific coast was one of the harshest marine environments on Earth, with storm systems that traveled thousands of miles uninterrupted, pummeling shorelines with waves sometimes exceeding 30 to 50 feet high. There was no shelter, no harbors, no easy landing spots. The risk was immense, and many lives would have been lost to the sea. Yet the people who settled at Rimrock Draw, and likely other coastal areas, made this perilous journey anyway. They were not simply crossing blindly, but had accumulated knowledge over generations about tides, currents, weather patterns, and the seasonal rhythms of the sea. This level of understanding only comes from long-term interaction with the marine environment, not from sudden arrival. Along this coastal route, early humans could fish, hunt marine mammals, and gather shellfish, sustaining themselves as they moved along the shore. It was a dynamic, mobile lifestyle, rooted in intimate awareness of the ocean's opportunities and dangers. This maritime adaptation contrasts sharply with the terrestrial hunting narrative that dominated earlier migration theories. Acknowledging the coastal migration model also expands the geographical and cultural context of early American life, inviting us to look beyond inland archaeological sites to submerged landscapes now underwater. Rising sea levels since the last ice age have erased much of this coastline, concealing potentially critical evidence about the true history of human settlement. Rimrock Draw thus acts as both a window and a doorway, showing us early life in the interior West, but hinting at a migration story that began on the wild, ice-chilled coasts of a lost Ice Age continent. This realization shifts how we conceptualize human movement, challenge old assumptions, and search for new clues in places once considered unreachable or inhospitable. The quiet desert winds may hide millions of stories below, but the paths those ancient feet once took are becoming clearer, reshaping everything we thought was settled in the saga of America's earliest peoples. The beginning of a new archaeology. Despite the groundbreaking discoveries at Rimrock Draw, much of the site remains unexplored. Beneath the layers containing ancient tools and animal remains lie deeper sediments that have yet to be fully examined. These lower layers may hold even older evidence of human presence, potentially pushing the timeline further back, beyond the current estimate of nearly 20,000 years. The possibility that people lived here during or before the last glacial maximum challenges the limits of what archaeologists thought possible. Small stone flakes already recovered from below the established layers hint at deliberate human activity well before the current oldest artifacts. Though they are not fully shaped tools, these flakes suggest controlled use of stone and repeated visits to the shelter long before the Ice Age camel was butchered nearby. Subtle disturbances in the soil point to ongoing human presence and activity, revealing a story more complex and stretched out than once believed. Excavation at Rimrock Draw is a careful balance between discovery and preservation. Funding limitations and the irreversible nature of digging mean that archaeologists must proceed slowly, weighing the need to uncover history with the responsibility to protect it. Many expect that further excavation will reveal bones of larger Ice Age animals in deeper soils, drawn to the same wetland environment that once sustained human life and the camel herds. If future findings confirm earlier human activity in these unexplored layers, the implications will be monumental. The timeline for human migration into the Americas could stretch back to 22,000 or even 25,000 years ago, opening new debates on the roots and adaptations of pre-Clovis cultures. Such a shift would force a complete re-evaluation of migration models, technological development, and survival strategies in a vastly different Ice Age world. Scientists are already investigating the last glacial maximum for answers about a time period which began almost 26,000 years ago, when huge ice sheets occupied most northern land areas and sea levels reached their lowest point. The sea level drop created previously hidden Pacific coastline areas, which might have developed into ancient travel routes that now exist underwater. Early humans used these coastal pathways to travel across territories that looked completely different from the present-day landscape. The current research explains the first Americans as flexible, skilled people who managed to survive in extreme climates much earlier than researchers previously believed. The study establishes human history through its key dates, yet presents an intricate human journey, which shows how people triumphed by acquiring knowledge and developing strategic plans and learning about different environments. The first stages of human settlement in North America continue to be discovered through ongoing archaeological research, which uncovers new evidence hidden under soil and sediment layers. This discovery at Rimrock Draw fundamentally changes how we understand human history in North America. It challenges long-held timelines and migration theories, revealing early peoples who were skilled, connected to their environment, and far older than the accepted narrative suggested. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that uncover history's hidden truths. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.